For those who grew up in the 2000s watching Nickelodeon programming, this image might be more than shocking. And the person behind the cameras is none other than Tylor Chase, a young man who shone decades ago in one of the network's most memorable shows. And his obvious homelessness is just the tip of the iceberg. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Tylor is back in the spotlight now for having destroyed the room they got him so he could spend New Year's Eve. And this puts certain issues, as delicate as they are urgent, into perspective. What is the best way to help someone who is going through a similar conflict? Is it simply about getting money, or is there a much deeper underlying problem? Social media has been filled with speculation in recent days. How does someone with a bright future ahead end up like this? What did the actor's father reveal when questioned by the media? How did his exes and castmates react to his difficult time? And more importantly, isn't it disturbing that Tylor's name is now added to a troubling list of young men and women in entertainment whose mental health was broken after being on Nickelodeon? Today we're going to look into the sad case of Tylor Chase, another child star who faded away too soon. First of all, keep in mind that this is a developing story, so by the time this report comes out, there may be some new updates. If so, add any necessary info in the comments. Also, keep in mind that throughout 2025, we covered many cases of child actors and actresses who ended up paying a very high price for being in the spotlight. These videos are on this channel. Did you watch Nickelodeon as kids? Comment Nickelodeon yes or no, and I'll read your responses below. And now let's begin. The rise and fall of a promise. The 2020 census reports Riverside, California has 314,998 residents. Several surveys rate it as the ideal place to live. Today, Riverside is back in the spotlight across the United States, not for its virtues, but because of a person wandering its streets who seems harmless at times, but can also have violent or delusional outbursts. That person is none other than Tylor Chase. He was born on September 6, 1989 as Tylor Curtis Mendez in Arizona and is the son of Joseph Mendez Jr. and Paula Moisio. His family moved to the Los Angeles County area to pursue the boy's dream. And what was that dream? To be a show business personality? Encouraged by his family from a young age, Tylor sought recognition in front of the cameras. So he studied acting, shined in theater plays, and started attending castings tirelessly. For a moment, after some rejections, he came to believe that he had been naive and that he would never achieve his goals. But in the mid-2000s, his luck changed. One day he got a call that would change his life, for better or worse. It was from Nickelodeon. Chase quickly gained recognition for playing Martin Quirley, a recurring character in the comedy series Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, which aired from 2004 to 2007. There, his character, restless, nervous, and clever, was a lovable part of the teenage ensemble that taught viewers how to survive the maze of middle school. During those years, Tylor Chase often walked among strangers' gazes and applause. At only 15, his face became known in millions of homes, and it was hard for him to walk down the street without being stopped for an autograph. Messages of love and admiration kept coming to him, but things soon became a bit invasive. It was the kind of fame that drags young people toward a light too intense to be carried on a boy's shoulders. His name echoed in conventions, memories, and moments of shared childhoods. His followers put him on a pedestal and screamed around him. However, when night fell and he was alone at home, Chase was just another person, just another one who began to deal with anxieties and disorders caused by excessive exposure. After Ned's Declassified, Chase's career never shone again. Likewise, he appeared in the 2005 television series Everybody Hates Chris and played young Adam in the 2007 indie film Good Time Max, directed by and starring James Franco. He also lent his position. Very interesting story. Interesting Tylor. Tylor's story is very interesting. Chase. Very interesting story of Chase. Interesting story of Tylor. Interesting Tylor. Tylor's story is very interesting. Tylor Chase's story is very interesting. Very interesting story of Chase. None of this stopped the interest in him from fading. A bit depressed, Chase moved to Georgia to live with his father, and for a while tried to reinvent himself. He shared poetry videos on YouTube and discussed art, introspection, and life. But something was brewing inside him due to various addictions and situations that pushed him to collapse. Tylor had visited doctors who quickly gave him precise diagnoses that the young man would subtly hint at. A poem of his from 2014 titled Bipolar, and later the video's Bipolar Vlogs, addressed his experiences with certain disorders, without leaving humor aside. Tylor seemed clearly intent on overcoming his difficulties, but in 2021 he disappeared from social media and never returned. No one imagined that years later he would reappear completely changed, and that's how our story returns. At the beginning, the real downfall began far from the sets and the noise of the audience. According to his family, Tylor has dealt with severe mental health issues for more than a decade, including schizophrenia. This, combined with constant refusals of treatment, left his mind vulnerable to chaos. His father has said that they tried everything: rehabilitation, professional support, medication. Tylor had even made temporary progress during a recovery program in Georgia in 2021. But the same bridges that supported him ended up breaking when he decided to stop taking his medication and return to using. It was in September 2025 when a video on TikTok put him back in the spotlight. It wasn't for a memorable performance, but for a heartbreaking scene. Tylor Chase, unrecognizable, was wandering the streets of Riverside, wearing worn-out clothes, his face dirty, and holding up his pants with his hands. The actor, who once taught survival lessons, now seemed to be struggling to survive in real life. That clip shocked former followers, who were divided between sadness, nostalgia, and deep concern. The spontaneous viralization also opened the doors to both compassion and the exploitation of his image. The story took an even more painful turn when former setmates tried to lend him a hand. The actor who played Cookie in Ned's Declassified traveled from Los Angeles to meet Chase in person, walking with him, sharing pizza, and giving him temporary hotel shelter, while winter storms were raging. That same week, Lee even arranged a video call with Tylor's father to try to connect them and convince him to accept more help. Lee spoke publicly about his faith in his friend, and the two hugged in a moving video. But the help didn't last. Reports say Tylor trashed the motel room within hours, overturned the fridge, put a microwave in the bathtub, and vanished onto the streets again. Another former industry colleague, Sean Weiss, who knows firsthand the pitfalls of addiction and recovery, also spoke out publicly. He offered a place for Chase to enter a detox and treatment center, something concrete, structured, and with professional support. If Tylor decides to accept that path, so far, Chase's resistance to receiving professional help persists, complicating any genuine attempt to help him break free from the cycle he's trapped in. It's important to note that Tylor Chase's downfall is more than just a former child actor becoming homeless. On one hand, it's a reminder that behind every famous face, there's a human being whose story doesn't end on the screen. But above all, it's a reflection of an industry that for years has turned what were once dreams into nightmares. Why is it always the same? There's a pattern that repeats itself uncomfortably every time a former Nickelodeon child star reappears in the headlines for a dramatic downfall. Connecting the dots makes it seem less like isolated tragedies and more like something unsettling. A system that during the 90s and the 2000s shined on the outside but was cracking on the inside. Nickelodeon defined a generation. The orange color, the exaggerated laughter, the slime falling like a green blessing from above. It promised eternal childhood, rebellious, fun, and unlike Disney's rigidity. But while the screen sold freedom, behind the curtain, adult work routines were being imposed on children's bodies and minds. Unscrupulous contracts, exhausting workdays, and a dangerous idea that the kids had to endure because they were living a privilege, and of course, many couldn't endure it. The case of Tylor Chase is not an exception, it's a consequence. Just like Amanda Bynes, who became a comedy icon at an age when identity is still moldable. We saw her fall apart in public. Between psychotic episodes, addictions, and a long history of hospitalizations, Drake Bell ended up being the most disturbing reversal of the story from child star to adult, wrapped up in crimes, convictions, and confessions that force us to ask, What breaks first when a child grows up in an environment where boundaries are blurry? His story isn't just about someone causing harm, but about a system unwilling or unable to detect, contain, or correct. There's also Jeanette McCurdy, perhaps the clearest and bravest voice of all. Her book wasn't a catharsis, it was an autopsy, induced hunger, body control, psychological pressure, and bought silences. Family and business people controlled her fate until she lost all faith in humanity. And if we widen the frame, names like Orlando Bloom appear, trapped for years between homelessness, paranoia, and public breakdowns. Or Aaron Carter orbiting the same media ecosystem, crushed by early fame, until a fate that no one could prevent anymore. Different paths, same point of origin. Childhoods turned into products. In the 90s and 2000s, the industry didn't talk about children's mental health. There were no clear protocols or real psychological support. In that structure, Nickelodeon wasn't the only problem, but a symbol, a laboratory where they tested what would happen if kids were treated like profitable adults and then let go afterward. Without a safety net, without tools, and without an identity outside the character they played for years. When the canned laughter stopped, there was only silence and more silence. For someone who grew up being watched all the time, it's deafening. Today, documentaries, exposés, and late confessions are rewriting the story, but it's too late for many, especially those who memorize scripts before understanding them. Is there still time for Tylor? Everything suggests there is. The story of these actors is not just a warning about childhood fame. It's a question directed at an entire generation that grew up watching those shows. How much joy was built on the silent exhaustion of those who starred in them? Victims' voices are growing stronger. Sometimes you must say enough is enough and put a stop to it. How many lives were lost because of the so famous one? The show must go on. Maybe it's time to remember we're not just cogs in a machine and don't always have to accept things. And above all, no show is worth more than the lives of those who keep it going.